when we're born, when we're created, there's a sperm and an egg come together and they create a ball of plasma. And in that ball of plasma, there's these two nerve clusters that grow and they form and they're connected by what looks like a string. And up until about 6 weeks, there's not a scientist or doctor on the planet that can tell you which one is going to be the brain and which one's going to be the small intestine. Meaning that our brain is not really our brain. Our brain is down here. And this is just a view screen of the brain that's connected to it. And then the musculoskeletal system grows around that. But your nerves, your tendons, your brains, your organs, every part of your body is grown in this substance called fascia. And so we are made of fascia. Our bones are made of fascia. And that's what science is now coming to realize. We used to think of our body as these components, and we used to think of the brain as a computer, but the brain is not actually the computer. The body is a computer, and the brain is more like a processor. It runs programs. So we're coming from a scientific point of view now that the fascia is intelligent. That means our body's intelligent, and that there's components in that intelligence which help that intelligence communicate within itself.
What I love about what you explained is, we even in the spiritual world talk about you having a human experience, your spiritual being having a human experience. And what I really love about this explanation is the tangibility of the spiritual being is literally like this electromagnetic field of information that is around us that cannot be seen, cannot be touched. It's just like energy in its purest form. And what I love is like, as we get into the human body and the energy slows down and becomes denser and denser and denser, that is what we call the human experience, which is the physical body, which is our organs and our bones and our tissues. And very pronounced is our fascia. And the way that when I was learning about the fascia, I understood it, it's almost like an intermediary between the really dense physical body and the energy body. It's like a conductor of energy.
Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celinne Da Costa, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today, and now let's dive in.
Hello, family. Welcome to It's Not What You Think. Today, we have a special guest who is going to give us a major download on health from the inside out. It's Garry Lineham, and welcome, Garry. I'm so excited to have you to the show.
So excited to be here. It's been quite the journey since we met.
Yeah. Well, let me first share about how I met Garry and why he's here on the podcast. And then we're going to dive in and talk all things health, fascia, water, hydration, self-care, and more. So I met Garry. First of all, let me just introduce him briefly. Garry is the co-founder of Human Garage and the pioneer behind Fascial maneuvers, which I'll link into in the show notes. And we're going to talk more about today for those of you who are not familiar with the fascia. So Fascial maneuvers in short way is it's a self-care movement system that improves mobility and reduces stress throughout the entire body. And Garry has this beautiful mission of teaching 1 billion people to learn how to heal themselves and has made this maneuver extremely accessible for people. It's free for people. And one of the reasons why he's here on the show is because I personally got to experience his work and found it so helpful that I wanted to bring him in to share his magic. So the way that Garry and I met was complete serendipity, as one does when it comes to anything that's aligned and universe related. It always comes in these beautiful surprises. I had a good friend of mine, Jamie White, invite me to Ireland completely spontaneously. And I remember him saying to me, we're going to be spending a week with this group, Human Garage. Have you heard of them? And I said, no, haven't heard of them. And this guy Gary's going to be there. Have you heard of him? I'm like, nope, haven't heard of him. And swear to God, did not even Google it, did not even look it up. I was just like, I'm just going to be in the mystery of it. I just said, yes, I'm going to Ireland. I booked a ticket. Next thing I know, I'm moving into a house with a human garage, spending a week just living with Garry and his team, and just getting completely thrown into the magic of fascia movement, body healing. And I've been into this stuff for years. I did last year, I did a yin yoga teacher training all about the fascia. I've studied cellular hydration. So it's not like the topics were unfamiliar to me, but it was the first time that I was thrown into an immersive container unknowingly, living with people who were like breathing, doing the stuff, and also facilitating each other. I got facilitated. Garry did some incredible work on me and like unblocked some things in my body that I really didn't even realize were stuck in my nervous system. But anyways, so that's how I met Garry. And after having a few very deep conversations with him throughout that week, and also being facilitated by him and watching him and his team basically do a conference where they were supporting over 1,000 people, I said, okay, that's it. We got to bring him in and share his knowledge. So anyways, all of that being said, Garry, can you share with us just a little bit about your background, why you're here, what you're most passionate about, and what led you to, for those who don't know what Human Garage is, if you could explain a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, okay. I mean, first of all, I was serendipitous for sure. I mean, you're a master in what you do, and it seems to be that we collect that type of person around us quite often. And Jamie, of course, is a master of what he does, and interacting with you was a lot of fun. And a lot of the reason why I'm here is because of the conversations that we had. And I was saying before we got on here that I don't get to have adult talk very much. And what's really nice about it with you is that we get to have adult talk, because there's a lot of teaching and education. And I felt like our conversations were mutually beneficial, which was really, really rewarding to me. My background, I'm an entrepreneur, been in businesses. I've had 13 businesses. I've taken 2 to over $50 million in under 3 years. And I've been on the board of a number of companies, but before that, I was an athlete. I was a bodybuilder. And back in the 80s, I got hurt. And for the rest of my adult life, I have been trying to work myself out of that pain. And as I got older, especially into my mid 30s, it became more and more prevalent that I had to take care of this. So I had my 3 days a week or 4 days a week that I was going to a massage, a chiropractor, some sort of care modality, Chinese medicine. And I was managing it for the most part, but over time it started to get worse and worse and worse. And it came to a crisis in my early 40s where I just wasn't able to properly function anymore. And even to a point where I lost my ability to work with a computer. Like I couldn't connect with it because there's so much. I had 8 concussions. I had neck pain, back pain. It was general discomfort. I had paid at that point $2.5 million trying to solve my issue, going from doctor to doctor, modality to modality. And at one point, I even got to the point where I started paying doctors and practitioners of all kinds of modalities to teach me. So I had my business life, and I had people that would teach me when I wasn't working. And at the end of it, it wasn't working. So in 2011, I became a practitioner. I financed a doctor, Dr. Rubenstein, who had built this modality of movement that was working with Olympic athletes that relatively got me out of pain. And at that time, I started learning physically how to work with people. That stopped working after a couple of years, and I was looking to bring in more modalities. And at that time, I spoke with Dr. Rubenstein, and the Human Garage formed. So we brought in 52 practitioners from every discipline you can imagine: neurological medicine, homeopathic medicine, natural. We had psychiatrists, we had trainers, we had all of this based around this idea that we had around working with fascia. So fascia was an idea, and then there's all these modalities that sat around it, trying to understand how they would affect the fascia. And we became a conductor of an experience. So I'm not a doctor by trade, but I would learn the practice of these medicine, these practitioners in 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 um in a an apprenticeship way. So I'm autodidactic, which means I just learn through the experience of doing, and feeling and doing. And so I would learn each form of medicine, and that would come in. I would work with the doctors until I was 80% of what they were practicing. Not knowledge, but what they practiced. Because we go to school for a long time to learn something, then we go into a job and we become very specific. And so in any job, the majority of what we learn, we don't use. So I was learning what was in practice, and learning multiple forms of medicine, I kept looking at the holes and things that were working and not working, and applying it to this idea of fascia. And I was finally out of pain but I was getting treatment 5 days a week because I'm in my own clinic. And I built the clinic because I realized that if I didn't have the clinic, I'm in pain. And I couldn't live my life unless I couldn't operate a normal business and go to a clinic, go to sessions, because I didn't have any time left. So I had to make my business the clinic. So what happened was in 2019, after 7 years of working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, I went on my first vacation, and I was in pain again. And I realized I hadn't fixed anything. I had just been taking care of it with a Band-Aid. And at that point, I realized that being in the clinical model and the modalities that I had used, and every modality you can imagine, wasn't working for me. And I'm not saying it doesn't work for other people. I'm saying that for me, they all worked until there's a point where they didn't work. And I've noticed this with thousands of people that I've worked with, that they work with something that works for them, it stops working, they pick up something new. And over the course of their life, they continue to use certain things from each practice, but they have to go from practice to practice, and they keep increasing the amount of work they do over time in order to feel good in their body. And that's where I was. So pandemic came. I'm in Canada, closed down the clinic. I'm in Canada. And I just started doing these movements that we had developed to help Olympic and professional athletes. I forgot to tell you that our clients were very unique. I mean, everybody from Ben Affleck to Tyson Gay, fastest Olympic runners, spiritual leaders, all of the top celebrities and people that would come to us, because we were very expensive. We were in Los Angeles, and we had a 12-week program. So people between living there and paying for us would spend anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 to come and have treatment with us. So it had a very niche market of people, but we became very good at fixing people that couldn't get fixed in traditional systems because we were using everything. And I realized that during the pandemic, I started doing these movements that we created to work with professional athletes. And all of a sudden, 3 months later, for the first time in my life, I'm out of pain, but I don't have anybody delivering anything to me. And it was just me. And when that happened, I realized that this was so innately simple, and it works so profoundly, that I had to bring this out to the world. And more so, it had to be brought to the world for free, because the majority of the world can't afford to pay for a system or can't afford a course or a program. So I was looking for ways to get this to the world for free. And that's over the course of time. Jason and Cynthia and then Aisha, the four of us got together, and we were able to bring this to a worldwide level through media, by just sharing openly. And we found ways to fund ourselves over the time, so we could keep every program from healing yourself all the way to a practitioner and make it free of charge. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of a background of who I am and why I'm here. And what we have is something that, like, I don't want to argue about the science of it, because there really isn't any science, and we're creating science. I mean, we have some things that scientific studies we've done, but we have doctors, over 500,000 doctors around the world today that are participating. We've got roughly about 25 to 30 million people doing this daily. And we've got about 4 million people online or in programs or in our platforms. Mm-hmm. So we have people doing this, and we have a media presence, which allows us to communicate it to people. Mm-hmm. And so I'm completely open to the fact that we don't know anything about what we're doing, but we know it works, and we're discovering every day how it works. And so we're releasing it to the public free of charge, intellectual property. And if somebody has an idea and they can figure something out that meaningful, helps us explain it or helps us develop more science around it, we're open to that and we'll use it as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that intro and for helping us understand what the human garage is. And, something that what I really, really love about this mission is that it's accessible to so many people and it gives people back the power to heal themselves. And I don't say that in a fluffy way. And I think by the end of the episode, it will become clear that there is a really practical, I mean, literally, you can just sign up for Human Garage and do the fascia maneuvers yourself. And in 28 days, you will see the practicality of what we're about to dive into. And that's what I really love about it. Just to take a step back, because I have a couple questions that I want to ask you about the fascia and how it works, but I want to contextualize it by sharing a little bit about my journey around this that even led me to the point where I could be remotely interested in having a conversation like this, because this was not even a couple years ago. I wasn't interested. I wasn't that interested in the functions of the physical body. And, I've been on my journey, on my personal development, spiritual journey for over 10 years now. And a lot of my time, a lot of my attention and energy has been hyper focused on understanding energy, the energetics, on understanding the emotional body, the energy body, and the mental body. Things like mindset, emotional regulation, energy healing. But one of the things that got left behind in my life and my journey was the physical body and really understanding how it functions. And about 2 years ago, I had a come to Jesus moment. Like before then, I had a couple of health issues that kind of alarms me. But the moment I resolved them, the moment that, they went away, I just, I forgot about them. But about 2 years ago, you've seen the scars on my legs. You actually asked me about it. I contracted this very lethal, like flesh eating bacteria on my leg called MRSA. And the whole story, I won't go into the story of how I contracted it, but the very short version is that I was holding on to a lot of repressed anger. I was not expressing my emotional body the way that it needed to. And within months, I developed a very, very real physical disease that left me in crisis. And the experience of going through that really painful, physically painful, emotionally painful, financially painful experience left me with this deep imprint of, okay, I really need to take care of my physical body now. And that set me down a whole rabbit hole of understanding my gut health, understanding the way the body works, reading books like The Body Keeps the Score, just going deeper into somatics, yoga, movement, learning about the fascia, learning about all the different, hydration and all these things that I was previously oblivious to. And I found that it was such a missing piece of my spiritual journey was understanding the ways that the physical body was actually contributing to my ability to operate in the world, literally just in every single way. And so I went down this rabbit hole of studying the fascia, and I'm fascinated by this. I didn't know about it, and when I started to learn about it, I couldn't unsee what I saw. And so I have some questions to ask you as it pertains to the fascia. But before we go there, I was wondering if for somebody who's like, oh, fascia, I've read that on Google somewhere, or somebody's mentioned it before, but I don't, what is this? What is the fascia? And if you could give us both like the scientific view, as well as there's a really potent metaphysical viewpoint on what the function of the fascia is as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's funny. While you were in Dublin with me, I had one of the world's leading physicians there. He's a surgeon, Dr. Patel, who I'm actually helping with right now, who came with stage 4 kidney disease. And he's now recovering from that after the work that we had done, that you were actually around at the time. And we were just talking about what fascia is, because there is an energetic belief system, but what we're doing is we're blending it with the science of it right now. So here's what I can tell you. When we're born, when we're created, there's a sperm and an egg come together and they create a ball of plasma. And in that ball of plasma, there's these two nerve clusters that grow, that you see growing up, and they form and they're connected by what looks like a string. And up until about 6 weeks, there's not a scientist or doctor on the planet that can tell you which one is going to be the brain and which one's going to be the small intestine. Because they're meaning that our brain is not really our brain. Our brain is down here. And this is just a view screen of the brain that's connected to it. And then the muscle skeletal system grows around that. But your nerves, your tendons, your brains, your organs, every part of your body is grown in this substance called fascia. And so we are made of fascia. Our bones are made of fascia. And that's what science is now coming to realize. So instead, we used to think of our body as these components, and we used to think of the brain as a computer, but the brain is not actually the computer. The body is a computer, and the brain is more like a processor. It runs programs. Let me give you an example. In the horsepower of the body, let's say the computing power of this computer, your brain has 100 billion nerve cells. And the nerve cell is like your horsepower, where your fascia has an interstitium called the brain, and that has 100 trillion nerve cells. So if you were to say that your brain ran your body, the same direct equivalent would be saying that your watch, your Apple iPhone watch, is running Google's worldwide servers, which would be ludicrous to say that. But that's the same exact analogy and ratio of computing power that you would look at saying your brain runs the body. So we're coming from a scientific point of view now that the fascia is intelligent. That means our body's intelligent, and that there's components in that intelligence which help that intelligence communicate within itself. And so the brain is more of a coordinator of activities rather than a doer of activities. And this is scientifically supported at this point, by the way. And it's not even questionable. It's been peer reviewed, and lots of research has been done. And you can Google, you have a new organ called an interstitium, or the fascia is a new organ, and you'll see all kinds of science and research on it, and it is documented, peer reviewed, and everything. Now, there's still a lot of people that believe the brain is in charge, but that's just not scientifically true anymore. So we have this highly intelligent, we're highly intelligent, and then furthermore, if we talk about the energetic component of it, because you are, and talk about energy healing, is that there's this ball of energy which we can measure around us. We can put it, we have photonic scanners that can scan it. We can look at where the energy is light or dark. And this is real equipment that shoots laser photons at our fingers and builds the energy or the aura, what we call, around us, and also can tell us where our energy centers are, our chakra points are, which is now scientific. And we can take Carillion photography and photograph it. Now that's there. It's outside of us. It's this ball of energy. It's around 6 feet around us. Now we can see it with equipment. Dogs can see it. Animals can see it. Insects can see it. But we don't see it with our naked eye. Some people do. I don't personally. And I'm always jealous of the people who do. So that means it's part of our human experience. Now, at the center of that human experience, as we get closer to what we call the physical body, we become more dense. That means that you and I can touch it or interact with it. It doesn't mean that I can't touch that field and interact with it. It just means that you and I, what we can sense is the touching of it, but we're actually touching it when we come into the field. That's how you know that somebody walks by you, you feel it. Or something comes into your space like a ball and you catch it, or something drops and you catch it behind you. Because you are aware of it. There's another sense that we have that we're just not tuned into, that which comes through our fascia. So we are the dense part of it is the dense part of the human experience is what we call the human body. And when I say dense, I mean it in every word. This is higher frequency, so higher intelligence. The lower intelligence is what we call the human body, which we say is our intelligence. So what we call the human experience is the body, which is actually the dense part of it. And the intelligent part is the stuff outside. So that is actually all scientifically true. The part of it that we interact, we call fascia. If we were to look at it physically, we got skin around us, which is highly elastic like a balloon. It's biotensegrous. And inside that, there's this fascia, this gel liquid like matrix. And if somebody looks up the fourth phase of water, they'll see what that gel is made of. It's highly intelligent. And our bones float inside that water because none of the bones in our body touch except for our teeth, our rib cage, and our ears. Otherwise, bones don't touch. So bones cannot be even structure. This is how we have to rewire the way we think of it. So if your bones aren't structure, then what is structure? Take the knee joint, for example. In between the knee joint, you have a meniscus. If that touches, it rips. If your knees touch, you're in pain. They actually get a shock. Your tendons keep the knee from pulling apart. There's only one muscle across the knee. It's literally as big as my finger, and that's not holding up the body. So how does the knee hold up? There's only two things left: connective tissue, fascia, and skin. Skin isn't doing it. So your connective tissue is the structure of your body, and that is your fascia. What's cool about it is it's elastic. It has this ability to expand to like 600 pounds. Some people expand to. I got to 250 at one point, like a big balloon. And it can be completely elastic and come right back to its original shape, which I'm doing currently right now. Because when I started losing weight, I had all this saggy skin. Now it's all tightened back up again. And so what's even more cool about it is that fascia has a tensile strength, a break point of 50,000 pounds. That's the same break point as steel. So when somebody like tears a quad or a pec, if they tear a quad muscle in a gym, it goes bang. It sounds like a gun goes off. Like literally, it dominates the sound. It sounds like a car backfires. And that's coming out of our bodies. So it's really elastic, really powerful, and highly intelligent. And when it's properly hydrated, it has all of this flow of information, which allows us to connect to that energetic point, the body, the energetic body. When it's dehydrated, it doesn't connect as well. And if you go back 75 years ago, the medical textbook said we were 80% water. When I learned it 25, 30 years ago, we were 70% water. Today in school, we're teaching 60 to 65% water, which means we're gradually becoming dehydrated, which means that the connectivity in our body is decreasing. And with that decrease in connectivity, we have all kinds of malfunctions which cause our body to not be at ease anymore. That's what you call dis-ease, not at ease. And so we have this body, we have this fascia, and this, when it's open up and hydrated, and you got a chance to feel my body, I don't feel like a normal human being. I feel like an 18-month-old baby. And that's loose and that's hydrated. It's highly enriched with silica and highly liquid. And this is what we're supposed to be, I believe, anyways, that we're supposed to be. And everything that you have in the body, like your brain, your nerves, your tendons, your muscles, your glands, your organs, your veins, you can cut out. But the only thing you can't cut out of your body is fascia, because we are fascia. It's the container. So everything that we look at in science and medicine lives inside that fascia. That fascia is the electrical wiring that makes all those hormones work and connects it all to the brain and then to our system. Does that help explain?
This is amazing. And I just want to like reflect a few things that when I first learned about this, I found to be really useful. What I love about what you explained is, we, even in the spiritual world, we talk about you having a human experience, your spiritual being having a human experience. And what I really love about this explanation is the tangibility of like the spiritual being is literally like this. There's this electromagnetic field of information that is around us that cannot be seen, cannot be touched. It's just like energy in its purest form. And what I love is like, as we get into the human body and the energy slows down and becomes denser and denser and denser, that is what we call the human experience, which is the physical body, which is our organs and our bones and our tissues, and very pronounced is our fascia. And the way that when I was learning about the fascia, I understood it, it's almost like an intermediary between the really dense physical body and the energy body. It's like a conductor of energy. And what I really loved that I had learned in my yoga, so as I did this yin yoga teacher training last year, and it was all about the fascia, all about embodiment. So I learned more of the metaphysical significance of the fascia. And then when I spent time with you and the Human Garage, I was able to ground it more in the scientific principles of the fascia and the way ways that I'm bridging them together now is really seeing this container, which like containing our, you know, physical dense human self, and this container is like that intermediary of what's happening in the energy field, and then what's also happening inside our very, you know, physical bodies, our organs, everything that's inside. And something else that really resonated with me, and that you have like described in your explanation, is when we talk about water and hydration. And again, coming from, I've spent a lot of time in the neuroscience scientific schools, and I've also spent a lot of time in the shamanic like realms. So one of the things that I love about doing this work is I have a foot in both ends, and so I love connecting these two different principles. And we learned a lot about water being this like sentient being that conducts. It's a conductor of information. It's a conductor of codes. Like water listens. There's even these studies that have been proved that show that when you like speak positive affirmations into water, it creates all of these beautiful shapes when it freezes. And when you speak ugly words into water, it like turns into these very distorted shapes. And so water, I believe, is just this incredibly important conductor of information. And it makes sense then that if we are living in bodies that are chronically dehydrated, and our fascia is chronically dehydrated, what we don't have access to is flow. What we don't have access to is water. And therefore, by extension, what we don't also have access to is the information that's surrounding us, to divine intelligence, to like what's outside of the quote unquote human experience. So that's what I love about that. And then of course there's the very practical explanation that if we are not being hydrated, then we are literally like we do not have fully functioning bodies, because our bodies need hydration in order to function at their optimal peak performance, spirituality aside. So I would love if you can speak more into the importance of hydration, and specifically cellular hydration. And I know you're also a wealth of information in terms of what I'm sharing about the metaphysical significance of hydrating yourself and keeping your fascia hydrated for not just peak performance, but also to be in peak connection with source.
Okay, so let me give you two other viewpoints of the body to kind of connect this. First of all, if we're the dense part and this field around us is the intelligent part, then we don't have a field. So we don't have an aura. There's an aura that has a human at the center of it. And from that perspective, we are, when our perception is in our higher self, we observe ourselves. That's a human, that's light observing the human part of us, or what we call the human. The other part too is that when you condense the body, if you were to just put it in a centrifuge and spin it and see what comes out of it, what happens is what comes out of it, or should come out of it right now, is 70% water or greater, 25% silica, sand. Silica is sand, basically. And 5% bacteria, viruses, and parasites. We have 50 trillion cells, but we have parasites and viruses that we were taught to be afraid of, but we have 380 trillion viruses in our body. So we have more viruses than we have cells. That means we have viruses that have viruses that have viruses that have viruses. And what we thought was a virus was something to be afraid of. When the human body has contrast or has friction, the body develops or grows past that friction. Even when we tear a muscle to build it, we tear something and it grows over. That's the architecture of growth as a human. So viruses themselves help us grow. They help us move through something. And you mentioned earlier that you had MRSA. I was so infected with MRSA in 2006 to 2009 that a doctor friend of mine told me that he wouldn't treat me anymore. I had to go to an infectious disease specialist. So I'm very familiar with the bacterial loads and the viral loads that go along with it and what they can do to you, like life-ending stuff. And there's a metaphysical component to that as well. And we'll talk about how the hydration meets to that. So the water water is the H2O is the only substance that on the periodic table that takes molecules and gives molecules. So it's always receiving information and sending information. So it's a conduit. And since we're predominantly water and we have all this organic matter in us, we're the same chemical composition as a quartz crystal. So basically, we're a crystal. What does a crystal do? In your cell phone, a crystal takes the wire part and then amplifies the signal to the cell phone tower. Otherwise, the signal would only go a couple hundred feet to 1,000 feet maximum. So the crystal amplifies the signal. So we have all of this density, which is like a bone, which is a conductor, and we have and around it is this higher, less dense part of it called fascia, which is sending and receiving signals. So the important part about it is that when that water is when there's enough water and the minerals are present in there, which holds the water, the body sends and receives signals in a higher capacity. When the water becomes too crystalline, think of like fiberglass. It becomes very fiberglassy, and you can actually feel it. Like sometimes when you stretch, it feels like something's tearing. That's because if the water in your body, your fascia is very fiberglassy. In other words, it's dehydrated. So the connectivity of the body, there's some elements that are really important. And I say elements actually tongue in cheek because right now we have chemicals in our world. Barium, strontium, aluminum is being sprayed in our skies to produce a geoengineering for climate control. And we can agree whether that's right or wrong. I'm not even here to have that argument. That's a whole rabbit hole. But what we can do is we can say, well, what happens when we breathe in barium? Well, barium depletes the body's silica. And when the body's silica is depleted, silica is the base element. And we need elements before we have minerals. So silica, selenium, calphos, as an example, have to be present in the body. If silica is not present, we don't absorb selenium, calphos, any of the other elements. Without the elements being present, we don't absorb minerals properly. So we can take them, and then we don't absorb them. And this is what's happening to a lot of what we say are healthy people today who have lived a healthy life 20, 30, 40 years ago and are not experiencing the health that they would consider to be a healthy life today. And this is what I saw as a clinical practitioner. So we have literally 99% of the population chronically dehydrated. And the reason why is because we have this unusual load on our allostatic load on our system with barium, which is depleting our silica. And by default, we're not able to absorb the water. So we clinically started giving 10,000 active patients in our clinic. We had 10,000 active patients. We ran 50,000 tests on them to determine this. And again, this is only one study, but it's 10,000 patients that we did it with. It's a pretty big study. And we did it over 7 years. What we did is applied silica to all 10,000 patients, and every single person's conditions, whether it's emotional or neurological, from hair loss to hormone regulation to elasticity of the muscles and performance, all improved when we gave them silica. So right now, every single person can go take silica from like horsetail is a good source of it, or we prefer diatomaceous earth. And by doing that, they can start to increase the hydration in their body automatically. Now you talked about structure of the water. So when we say bad words to water, it's structures. Now that structure is what your intention has to get through, both from your field to the body and from your body to the field. So like if I'm thinking a thought and I want to manifest something, I have to get it through the density of my body into my field so that it can radiate out to the world. Well, if that has to go through a hazardous wasteland on the way out to the field, then my thoughts and my intentions become corrupted and I start manifesting crap in my life that I don't want. But and the same thing likewise, if my good intentions for my field are trying to make it through, my body has to make it through heavy metals and dehydration, and all of it has to find its way through. So it's like filtering its way through, because the intention, like you said, the water is taking the intention and carrying the intention through, which is actually physically visible in the shape of the water. So, and this, you can look at harmonics. You look at sand on a vibration plate. or water under frequency. And you see water spins under frequency, and sand vibrates into patterns. And the higher the frequency, the more complex the patterns. So if I have a complex pattern, when I have an intention, it goes out in an organized, beautiful fashion. If I have a disruptive pattern from like Wi-Fi and signals and lower thoughts, so like anger, fear, shame, guilt, then it has to go through that and it radiates out. And no matter what my intention is, my body or the hydration in my body affects the way that even my intention gets delivered to the world. And that's why people they have good intentions, but they seem to get bad results. Like, it wasn't my intention. And you see this all the time, because I think human beings naturally have good intention. I think there's a lot of people that have good intentions, but because of the patterning and dysfunction of all the negative that they've had in their life and their family and their environment, it patterns the water in their fascia. And so their good intentions go out and they get dispersed in a negative way. And then as a result, they attract negative experiences to reinforce what they're putting out.
Wow. I had this crazy image in my head as you were speaking. I was thinking about the thought, being that signal that's being sent out, the electro signal that's being sent out. And I saw the thought like going through, almost like encountering this wall that is your fascia, and all of the patterns that are inside of the fascia that water carries, the way it structures. So all of the trauma you've had, the negative thought patterns that you've had, the conditioning that you've had, that you've been conditioned into unconsciously, that create, similar to the way that you speak positive words into water, and it creates these beautiful symmetrical designs that are like of nature, and the same way that you speak negative words in the water, and it creates these distorted patterns within the water structure. What I saw in as you were speaking into this was actually like, the fascia, because it does carry water, because it is fluid, coming in, having like all of these different patterns within the structure of the fascia because of the water. And then I almost see like the thought that is coming in, even if it's a good thought, even if you're having a good intention, hitting the pattern of the water and then getting almost like amplified out into the world in a way that was totally not what the intention was, but is actually a reflection of what the pattern is. And what dropped in as you were speaking into that is, it makes sense with all of the studies that I've done around psychology, neuroscience, energetics, emotional management. It fits into everything, which is almost this, this viewpoint that when we are walking around with physically traumatized bodies, when we are not doing the work to release the trauma, to release the this pent up stuck emotions that are creating dis-ease in the body, and we're just being our conditioned selves rather than our true authentic selves, then no matter how much we want a result in our life to look a certain way and how pure our intention is, when we're putting it out into the world, into the universe, it's going to go through the filter of a distorted pattern that needs to be resolved and be brought back into harmony, into cohesion, in order for the thought, the pure intention that you have, to be amplified with that power, with that purity. It needs to go through a pure, like coherent, harmonious pattern, which literally exists in your body. And even with, the famous book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's about your body, like it's all in our body. And so when we clean up our body and we bring our body back into a healing state and into ease, then we're actually able to manifest better. We're able to create better because we have more energy. Our intention is a match for our structure, our physical structure. And we not only have the physical energy, we have the emotional energy, and we also have the energetic structure that sustains the thought. And then you combine it with the emotion, with the magnetism and feeling those elevated emotions, and boom, there you have it. You've got a manifestation. But it's so cool because as you were speaking into it, I'm like, I lit up and I realized that's the physical connection. And if I'm off base, that might be it. But
No,
that's what landed for me.
I just want to say, like I've spent my life trying to understand these concepts, and I have enough of the science background. I have enough, like I said, Dr. Patel is one of the world's leading surgeons, and And he's taking the words that I've used and putting science to them now to explain them to the scientific community. We're taking it actually to a level right now in our conversation. You understand or understand exactly what I'm saying, which is there's a connection. We've disconnected this intention, human experience from physical experience. And even in our body, we've disconnected the systems, and they're intertwined. And this is why there are people all over the world that they're trying to have a good life. And they're even trying to get rid of trauma, and they're talking about it and they're doing things. But I have not found, with respect to the systems that are out there, including the current systems and modalities of movement and therapy, in my own life, they didn't work for me. They didn't remove my trauma. What removed my trauma was actually what I'm doing right now, which is fascial maneuvers. And I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but I have participated in every movement system on the planet that I can think of, and every modality. And what I've found is that there's some in the discovery of the fascial maneuvers, and I think I really think, or feel actually is a better way of saying it, that and I don't claim ownership. The reason why all the intellectual property is free is I feel that I'm bringing this to the world as a conduit. I don't own it. But what we do when we wrap up in that fetal position, we're in a fetal position, which gives our body context to the environment. And that context allows us to self-actualize or step outside of ourselves to see the stress buildup. Because what's trauma? Trauma is just accumulation of stress attached to an event with a narrative and an emotion that the body can't process. Because if the body processes it at some point, whether it's war trauma or sexual trauma, we let it go when we process it, but we can't process it until the body feels safe to do so. And the body feels safe to do so when it has the capacity, which it means its systems are running, which means it has to be hydrated. And this is why I believe also in being in clinical practice, I can see, like, if I said trauma 10 years ago, people go, I wasn't in the war. What are you talking about? Now everybody has trauma. Every kid has trauma. Everybody's talking about their trauma. There's a fundamental shift in society where we actually identify ourselves as having trauma. And that's the reason why, is because we are becoming more and more dehydrated, more and more dysfunctional in our body. And if we just take care of our bodies at this level, then we can remove the trauma. And when we remove the trauma, we start to attract the experiences. And this is what, in my personal life, I mean, I've run a lot of businesses, but I had to use force to run those businesses. Like, I described the business as solving problems. And I thought that the bigger the problem, the bigger the reward. And I described my whole career of business like that. And here I am now. I've done less business and marketing work with fascial maneuvers than I've ever done with any business in the world. And in 4 years, there's like almost 30 million people, somewhere around 25 to 30 million people now doing this, with hundreds of thousands of people, scientists and doctors participating. And I've basically done nothing but show up and share my own experience, which is the least amount of marketing and work I've ever done. I personally believe it's because my signal is being amplified, because I'm taking care of my body.
Hello, soul family. I hope you're loving this episode so far. Before we dive back in, I'd love to share with you one of my most popular and beloved free resources on how to stand out and magnetize your dream clients with your irresistible story. Because here's the thing, you have a powerful story inside of you. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, are you telling it in a way that empowers you? And not only that, that connects with and compels your audience. Whether you are a business owner or a leader who's in charge of influencing others, this masterclass will propel you in the direction of becoming someone who tells compelling stories that change people's lives, starting with your own. This is the secret sauce to standing out in a crowd of sameness and being seen as a go-to expert. Because here's the truth, if you don't own your story, it will own you. So if you're ready to step into your truth and tell your story unapologetically and confidently without the wobbles, start here. Go to the show notes or type in the link, CelineDaCosta.com/free masterclass to dive in. Enjoy. And now let's get back into the episode. Gosh, that is so important. And what really lands for me as you're speaking into this, and this has been part of my journey as well in the past couple of years, is when we clean up our body and we really like regulate our nervous system and clean up our body from the food that we're putting in our body, to the ways that we're supplementing our body, to the minerals we're putting into our body, to doing this work, these fascia maneuvers and whatever work it is that we need to do to release the trauma from the actual physical body. What you get, the best way I can describe it, is what you get is you start to live in a Ferrari. You start to live in a better car. And when you can live in a better car, you can go faster, you can function better. Your cognitive abilities are sharper, you're faster, you're more emotionally regulated. Like you can get back on your feet faster. If you do get stressed, you can come back into, stress regulations faster. And that's what I'm finding. Like even when people used to say, people who are older and got into their health stuff, and they used to say, I've never felt better than I did. I feel better in my 50s than I did in my 20s. And I didn't get that. But then I started to understand it. I'm only in my 30s, but every year I've had multiple people being like, are you aging backwards? Because every year I'm feeling better and better. And the more I clean myself up of toxins, metals, doing the gut detoxes, doing whatever, like the cellular hydration, and doing all the steps to really take better and better care of myself, what I'm finding is that I become more powerful, because the Ferrari that I'm living in, it allows me to become a bigger channel for, the information that is in whatever divine intelligence has in store for me, can actually get through my literal system. It can get through the physical system. Whereas before it didn't, like you were saying, like it just, by the time it hit my, it went from my aura into my physical field, it would just get all distorted and information would get lost. It wouldn't get through. It would be like picking up on a radio station and it would be all staticky. And the more I take care of my physical body, the more I have found that what I can receive is it's clearer, and what I can put out is clearer as well. So on that note, something that feels really important to address is the importance of emotions, because we've touched on this briefly throughout, but I really want to hit the nail on the head here, because in my personal journey, it has been such a massive learning to understand the ways that my repressed emotions, my blocked emotions, the emotions that I've been hiding from because of trauma, like the ways that we don't feel our emotions fully, and the literal results that this has on our physical body and the ways it creates disease. I think this is something that I know I personally didn't get, and when I got it, I couldn't unsee it. But I know there's so many people who aren't fully aware or connected to the gravity, the importance of our emotional state being a direct, indirect effect of our physical state. So could you speak more into that and demystify what it actually means to have, quote unquote, emotional blocks, and how the emotions and our us not managing them, and the importance of managing them is directly affecting the way that we feel on a physical level?
Okay, so I'm going to give another way to look at emotions. And I keep doing this because this is my experience. We have a way that we've taught about how our human experience works. But we have a belief system that, again, bones are in structure, but we have another one, which muscles don't move the body, because the muscles are fired by the brain. But before the brain coordinates an action for movement, the brain has to have an emotion called the desire. Because we can have a thought about something, but until I have a desire to do it, we don't connect to the emotions to do it. And that's why when we want to do something that we don't want to do, or it's hard, if I have to like pack up my own house, I have all these emotions around it. It takes forever and it's hard and it drains me. But if I have to come and pack up your house, it's just like matter of fact that I don't have any emotions, because there's nothing attached physically to that experience. So all movement is emotional first. And so movement is emotional. That means that we emote. That means humans are movement. Now I'm going to say another thing. All disease happens when the body can't move. So all movement in the body, like a blockage of flow, causes the body not to be at ease. Like if you have a vein that doesn't move, you'll feel pain. If you have a heart that starts to not move the blood, you'll feel pain. If you have vessels in your brain that don't move, you'll get a headache. So blockage of movement stops flow, which causes pain. So emotions is energy in motion, it's movement through the body. So a blockage of that causes pain or dysfunction. So basically, all disease is a blockage of movement in some capacity. When we take a medication, we're stimulating a function in the body, stimulating the body to move or get over a reason why it's not moving. And that's also Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, stuff like that. But even allopathic medicine follows that logic. Let's get it to work. Okay, because the body is working or not. So that means that all disease is emotional. Now, I'm using a very logical pathway of agreed upon principles to make a statement. And people can argue with that statement, but behind every disease is an emotion. Because if I have a disease, I have a trauma attached to it. And even if I don't directly attribute the trauma, even if I'm still not at the position in my life where I can say, well, that grief is causing this cancer. Even if I'm not there, I can agree that if I have cancer, I have sadness, fear, and grief. So it doesn't matter which end we look at it. There's an emotion attached to every disease. So at the core of it, emotions is a flow. And when our body is not flowing electricity or energy in the fascia, we have emotions that are trying to move themselves through the body and they can't move. So they become stagnant. And that stagnation causes stagnation of water. That stagnation of water then allows for activity, like a pond that doesn't flow, things like parasites and bacteria to overgrow, which is the result of our disease processes, whether it's MRSA or whether it's like Epstein-Barr or Bartonella or all of these viral loads. The reason why they're functionally disrupting us is because there's a blockage of flow, which allows them to have an environment like a pond that's not moving, that is allowing that parasitic or bacterial environment to grow, which is causing part of the disease process. So we can't disconnect emotion from motion and disease or function. They're all connected in this symbiotic way. But science is reductive. And we want in science to reduce things to a simple, like this equals this. But we can't do that in the human body because the body is a series of interdependent systems. Meaning interdependent, meaning if one system doesn't function properly, another one has to do more or reduce its function. So emotions, trapped emotions, means trapped or stuck flow, which means stuck fluid, which means biological, hormonal disease, which is also stuck movement. And it's all connected. And when we get out of this mindset that there's a difference between our physical body, our emotional body, our perceptual body, and we recognize that they're all there, then it starts to work. I'll give you an example of how a perception affects you. If I told you that Jamie, our mutual friend, died right now, and you believe me, he was in a car accident, he just died, your entire body would go into shock at this moment. Every system in your body would stop working. Your digestive system would stop processing, your stress index would elevate, your brain would contract, your amygdala would start to act. Every system would act towards that stressor. Now, if I told you then again 5 minutes later, oh, it was a different Jamie, it wasn't our Jamie, and you believe me, then immediately your body would start to come out of shock. Now, the effects of the hormones would stay in your body for 4 to 6 hours. That's how long it takes for the hormonal complex to change by itself. But the only thing that changed was a piece of information that you had belief in, which the belief regulates our perception, which then is the most dominant part of all of our experience, including the biological, measurable physical functions of the body. So how is it ethical for a practitioner or a doctor to sit in front of you and say, you have cancer or you have this disease? Because it can't be one thing. It can't be reductive. It has to be inclusive. So there's an ethical issue in the diagnosis of the human body, which is a labeling of the human experience. And if I label you and say that you're stupid, or if I even say you're smart, those are labels. And those labels conduct a perception which regulate an experience. And so on the greater sense, the entire part of the human life that we call, or the human experience, is to be authentic and to remove labels and to start to observe. But when we're in stress, stress narrows our focus, and the end result of stress is I don't see another way to get rid of this emotion, so I commit suicide. That's the actual end result of stress. Get out or die. The other side of that is serotonin, which is I see all the options in the world. And that happens when they're in a de-stressed environment. So when you do fascial maneuvers, the reason why it works so well, like if I was to stretch a muscle in a stretching practice or yoga, I'm actually creating adrenaline, which spikes the stress response and then drops the nervous system down into a spot where it starts to heal and recover. That's why we're not supposed to eat 4 hours after a yoga practice. But we do anyways, because the body can't even process the food. So we go into stress to come out into a healing environment. When we do fascial maneuvers, as far as we can tell from all the studies that we do, is that there is no stress created, and we drop in 7 to 10 minutes into a parasympathetic state. And our body's serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, testosterone, estrogen, estradiol goes up, and it's measurable. We can actually measure it by science within the first 7 to 10 minutes. So it actually puts the body in a option state, which means when I see options, I feel more safe. I feel like I have room between me and the discomfort or the disease, creating a healing environment. And this is what's important. Now, I know I unpacked a lot there, but again, using a very scientific and very methodical way to explain how it all works.
Mm-hmm. I love this. And what really strikes me, to summarize what you've shared, is that this is just yet another way to explain this fundamental truth that our thoughts, they affect our emotions. Even with that example that you used around the accident, if the way you perceive reality, the way you think about things is going to affect the way you feel. And when you feel a certain way, that feeling is going to be literally releasing certain chemicals in your body, and that is going to start to affect and change the way that you feel on a nervous system level, the way your body is reacting. Like you said, digestion stops, like certain functions in the body system stop because a thought led to an emotion that then creates shock or creates an excess of adrenaline or whatever that is, depending on what you're perceiving. And then if you're not catching yourself, and if you are not re-regulating yourself or changing the thought, shifting the emotion, then this done over time can become chronic. This done over time can be something that continues to put your body in disease. These dysregulated, these emotions like pain, anger, fear can continue to just like push the body into disease. And if you do this for long enough, the body will begin to respond to it, through things like you said, like cancer, or for me, in my case, it was the MRSA. And it will start to have like these very tangible, like dense reactions. And so what this really highlights is the importance of managing our thoughts and managing our perception of reality. And not only that, like also being able to manage, process, release, move our emotions, energy, and motion, because ultimately the emotion is going to be also impacting the way your body is functioning on like a very practical 3D level. And so that's so important. And one of the things that I remember, when one of the conversations that you and I had when I was in Ireland, I remember speaking to you and saying, but Garry, I recognize, for example, in my position, I feel like I'm very privileged and I've been able to have access to all of these health practitioners and health, like I've been able to satiate my curiosity for health in many different ways, shapes, or forms through practitioners, courses, workshops, just being able to be at the right place at the right time. But I also recognize that this is not accessible to most people, which is why I know you also created you've released so much free education so people can empower themselves. And one of the things that you said that really struck out to me, because I said, Garry, make it so simple. Like, because, we were going down rabbit holes around cellular hydration and food and this, and there was like so many intricacies that we were in. And at one point I'm like, okay, I get it. I've registered all of the details, but can you make it stupid simple for me? And like, what do I need if I want to keep a healthy body? If I want to like just be good to myself on a physical level, what is it? And I remember you said to me, it was, and if I misquote you, then you can correct me. It was fascia. No, sorry. It was movement, hydration, and minerals. These like stay on top of these three things and you will be good. And everything else is just, details. So, as we start to complete today's episode, what I really would like to do for anyone who's listening is to offer some kind of roadmap for people to streamline and access, like be in contact with their own health, because there's so many things that we've talked about today. There's so many things that we can talk about. If you're a health nut like us, like there's many, many different rabbit holes to go under. But I recognize that a lot of people, as self-aware as my audience is, as freaking sharp, intelligent, empowered as my people are, I also recognize that it's very easy to get overwhelmed when it comes to health in a really stressed out world where a lot of things are going on. And so would you be able to, offer for the person who's listening and is like, look, I'm all about this health thing, but maybe they're just getting started or there's a lot going on and they're just trying to fit this in. What is that? If you can, further explain that 3-step, guide map that you gave me, and how can they walk away even from today's episode and be able to put into action, like becoming their best selves and healing their body so that they can experience all of the benefits that we shared about: the mental clarity, peak performance, living in a body that feels like a Ferrari, all of these beautiful things that we want for ourselves, because feeling healthy is even more important. It's like the ultimate form of wealth, at least for me. There's very few things in my life that are more important than my health. So would you be able to help anyone who's listening and just give them that
Let's make
roadmap?
it really simple. Now, you can do this a couple different ways, but I have found in my own personal life that this movement practice of fascial maneuvers, which is free, accessible for everybody to do, was the thing that actually got me past that and, let's say, cured my body or helped me perform at the level I wanted to. So that's free of charge. And if there's another way of doing it, then do another way. And if it works, it works. Okay. But you can start off by going to our website and doing a 15-minute stress reset. And you can start basically there. That gets an overall 80% of what you need. And you could do that 1, 2, or 3 times a day. It'll only take you 12 minutes when you get used to it. And if you give yourself twice a day of doing that, you will reduce your stress index by 70, 90%. So when my stress is down, my emotional regulation is in check. When my stress is up, I can't regulate emotions. That's a biological fact. So by doing that 1 to 2 times per day, you're going to bring your body out of stress, and at the same time, you're actually moving it. So even if you have a sedentary lifestyle, you're getting those in the easiest, simple format, 2 times a day, 15 minutes. Go get diatomaceous earth, which you can get anywhere in the world, literally food grade. You can Google 31 benefits of 31 evidence benefits of diatomaceous earth. Or you can go to our website and you can download a free supplement guide, which will explain all of this in detail and why you take it and how much and all that. But even if you can't do that, diatomaceous earth and a heavy mineral complex like Irish sea moss is the best. If you add bladder wrack to it, you get 102 of the 102 minerals you need. If you have shilajit and that's all you got, then use that. Yeah, but as many of those 102 minerals as you can get. And that's why Irish sea moss is the best, because it has the most complete. And you take diatomaceous earth, or another form of silica, Irish sea moss, or an equivalent, and you do fascial maneuvers, you will get the emotional regulation, the movement, the minerals, and the hydration. You don't even have to go and drink a lot of extra water, because most people have enough water intake through their food and beverage. What they're missing is the ability to hold that water and use it properly, which is minerals. And you'll find that if you're thirsty all the time, it's because you're dehydrated and demineralized. And so these are some little things that you can use and you can do. And that's the simplest form that you can do, because it encompasses everything in that small action. And even if you can't do it twice a day, once a day, 15 minutes, which is really 12 minutes. And if you do that, take those simple minerals, it all works. And you don't have to buy our supplements. Like the way we fund ourselves, all of our programs are free of charge. The way we fund ourselves, right from a beginner all the way to a practitioner, scientific level. But the way we fund it is we sell supplements. You can actually purchase supplements or get equivalents that we will tell you how to get, and it'll accelerate that journey, make it faster. But at the core basic level, make it simple, make it something that you can do every day that you can complete. Because if you try to go on, and people just all the time, I'm going to go on this 28-day journey. And they get into day 14 and they're like, I can't do it anymore. And the first time, my first 28-day reset, I failed on day 22. In front of everybody, publicly. I went every day online, and on day 22, I quit. I put it in my app, and people are like, hey, did I miss something? Did you go to day? And I had to tell everybody I failed. It was a horrible experience. So do something that you can do, and 12 to 15 minutes a day you can do easily. And if you take a day off, you have a day you missed, forgive yourself. And if just within the third day, always within the third day, which is a perception cycle, make sure that you're back within 3 days, and then don't give up.
Beautiful. What I so love about this is just the simplicity, like the straight up simplicity. Because, even going through my own health journey, I have found so much complexity of just trying to figure out, trying to study everything, trying to understand everything. And yes, there's a time and a place. And for those of you who are really curious and interested, there are, like I said, so many rabbit holes to go under. But what I feel is such a big takeaway from today's episode is you've gotten so much information and so much value, hopefully, from what we've shared. But ultimately, if you are committed, like if you're desiring to be better with your health, it's so simple. It's that movement piece, your minerals, and hydration, and just that, like, that's what it takes to have a really functional body. And then those are it's the foundations, it's the building blocks, and then you can build your health from there. So thank you so much for sharing this, because it just makes it easy. And what I really love as well is that, for those of you who are like, I want to try these, I want to do more movement, is you have this massive wealth of like free resources that Gary's providing. So you just hop on the website, like download the app, and know that you can do this literally. You can start today, and you can start improving your health today, and start to work better with your body today. So that's really cool. Anyways, as we complete, before we let you go, Garry, I'm curious if there's any, for anyone who's just made it through this entire episode, I know that was a lot packed, and for some of you, you might have to listen to that more than once. Is there anything you want to leave the person that is on the other end of the line with?
I think the biggest part that I want people to realize is that the greatest ability for you to heal and perform is the belief that you can do it. And if you go to somebody else to heal you or help you perform, you're giving away the innate power and the ability for the body to build its belief system to do this. So it's you, it's within you. If you're looking for healing, also the last thing is, people who try to heal, in my experience, don't heal. People who want to perform, healing is a side effect of performing. So focus on performance, not healing, and adjust the belief and take it inside of you, and you can do it.
I just remembered you spoke to me about this when we were chatting a couple weeks ago, and this really struck me, especially as a high performer, that when you have your eyes set on like the level of performance that you want to have in your body, like what it is that you want to create. And by performance, I'm not meaning I'm not talking about the like, go, 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 do kind of thing. I'm talking about what you were saying around, like, I've never worked less and like have more impact than I do now. Like that, I'm speaking into that aligned performance of, I want to create this vision. I want to turn this vision into reality. And the desire to do so from a regulated nervous system, not just like, I want to check off all these goals on my to-do list, but I want to perform, high perform, and create, like manifest this vision into reality. And I want to do so from a space where my nervous system is regulated. I'm taking care of my body, and I'm happy with me, because there, I've worked with so many high performers, and I can't tell you how many people perform, quote unquote, get the vision, strike off the goals, but by the time they're there, their health has taken a huge hit. They're chronically exhausted. They're just not healthy. And so what was it worth for? Like it was a trade-in. Like they traded in their health and their physical and emotional well-being to achieve a certain amount of goals. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about high performance, high being like healthy performance. And what I love about this share is that health is like, it's got to happen. If you want high performance in those conditions where you're happy, wealthy, feeling good by the time you reach your goals, then health doesn't fall off the track. And so if you're looking to heal yourself, it has to happen on the road. And like, if you're in with that vision of high performing according to your soul mission purpose, then your healing is part of that journey, as opposed to what so many people do is they make, I need to heal the end of the journey. And as we know, having done this for many, collectively decades now, there is no end like to healing. It's spiral dynamics. There's always another layer. We're always ascending into different layers, different nuances of our healing journey. And so if healing is the end path, it's just like, it's going to be a long road. But if you set the goal, the vision that you have in your heart, and you commit to performing at your best, really, truly, like honestly, at your best, then healing is a must. It's a step that you will move through on your pathway there. So thank you so much for reminding me of that, because that's actually something that really, really struck me.
Awesome. It was really great being here with you.
I know. No, I know. It's so much fun talking to you. I have done this for hours. But anyways, before we jump off, if you could share with us, for the people who are curious about you, where can we find you? Where can we find Human Garage? Let us know, and I'll also link it into the show notes.
Yeah, just humangarage.net is probably the best place, because it's a directory of everything we do. You can go onto YouTube and social media channels. You can find Human Garage. Or at this point, you can probably just go to a party and ask if anybody knows Human Garage, and you're likely to find 2 to 3 of your friends that already follow us and are doing something. So you'll get us online, or you'll get us through your friend group, but we're infiltrating. We're like the Borg. People are being assimilated all over the world.
I love it. I love it so much. Beautiful. And that's all linked in the show notes. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. It's our sincere intention and desire that this has touched you in some way, and not only touched you, but has also given you a practical roadmap to go ahead and optimize your health, and understanding the importance of that, and how that will have so many benefits on every aspect of your life. And as always, if there's any nugget that Garry or I have shared that you really loved, don't be shy. Screenshot, let us know, tag us on the social medias, let us know what really struck you, and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, Garry, for coming in. I'm so glad we had this conversation, and I'm sure I'll see you soon somewhere around the world.
Take care.
Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning in to today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celinne Da Costa, or visiting my website at CelinneDaCosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.